former President Thabo Mbeki, who's just about to address members of the ANC on the second day of the Gauteng ANC Renewal Workshop. This is happening at the Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg. Let's take you there live.
But first of all, comrades, let me say thank you very much indeed to you, Comrade Chairperson of the province and the PEC as a whole for giving us this opportunity to be with you for 2 days, discussing what are important issues concerning the future of our movement. Thank you indeed for very, very much for that, for this opportunity. In particular, Comrade Chair, as our chairperson has just said, also to have an opportunity not only to listen to the presentations made by Comrade Thabo and Comrade Percy yesterday, but to listen to yourselves, to get a better sense, certainly, of what members of the movement are thinking about the movement, its future, the revolution itself and its future. So thank you very much indeed for the comments that comrades made. Now, Comrade Chair, I don't want to be long, because I don't think it's necessary to give another long lecture like we did yesterday. There are certain questions that arose, Comrade Chair, that, as you indicated, issues that certain comrades raised, which in reality we ought to respond to, but in fact we don't have the time to do that. We need, Comrade Provincial Chair, we need another day for this political discussion to engage various issues that comrades have raised. For instance, in the discussions, one of the comrades, it was Hope, in fact it was Hope Papo, was saying, when we discuss the impact of the counter-revolution on our society, not the counter-revolution, but what Tammy called the settler colonial state, colonialism of a special type, we should not exclude discussion of its impact on the family. Comrade Faith Masbogo said, we should also, in the document presented by Comrade Tammy, it should have included issues on gender. The observations are legitimate, but I'm saying, Comrade Chair, it require more time to discuss those issues, and I don't think we have. It needs another extra day so that we can indeed discuss issues of that kind. The other comrades have raised other issues. One comrade raised this thing about Roman Dutch law and says it's foreign. We need an African jurisprudence. I would want to give him more time to make a presentation about that, certainly to educate me about it. I've heard other people say this. It would be good to take the Constitution as we have it and to say, in order to give it this African character, that rather than Roman Dutch, change this, change the other. Because that would help me to understand what is meant. But again, I'm saying this is another example, Comrade Chair, of some of the things that need more time to discuss. You have one of the comrades from the Youth League raised concerns about some of the things that Tammy said in his presentation, which was essentially that, as I recall it, that in assessing what the counter-revolution has done to the movement, we cannot exclude what it has done with regard to the Youth League. But that's a matter that we'll discuss later. I think, again, that was a correct a correct observation. Let's look at it later and see what is that all about. An issue that's raised about, if we talk about in the renewal process, a renewal process of looking at who are we, the thing that Zuko was saying, why should we be afraid of reapplying? And indeed, in the course of that reapplying, some people get excluded. The question was, does that not interfere with the mass character of the ANC? Again, we need to discuss that. The ANC has been saying, we've been saying that we, at some point, let's aim for 1 million membership, 1 million members. And then at some point, when you look at what's actually happened, you find that in reality, people that you can say are really members regular are about half that number. Does the ANC cease to be a mass organization if its members are 500,000 rather than 1 million? In terms of quality, what's the difference between 1 million and 500,000? Because obviously, in my view, a process that Percy was talking about, which would result in all of us renewing our membership by applying. I don't think it will result, I don't think it would result in a mass exclusion of this membership, such that it ceases to lose its mass character. But again, this is one of the matters that we need to discuss. Comrade Chair, you raised a question about, you basically saying, in discussing what happened after 2008, that's with regard to the economy and so on, we must include a discussion of what happened as a result of what started as a banking crisis in the United States, which produced a negative effect globally, economically, as a result of which, for instance, in this country, we lost at least 1 million jobs as a result of the contraction which came as a result, starting with the financial banking crisis in the US. That's a matter that we need to discuss, because it's part of the explanation of this decline in terms of the economy from 2008 onwards. So quite correct about that. But of course, the matter of what the government at the time should have done to respond to that crisis is something that would become part of that discussion. But I think it is correct to say that we must take that into account in terms of discussing what happened to our economy post-2008. So there are a number of issues like this raised by comrades, which I think are legitimate issues, but need to be need another occasion to discuss them. And I say maybe another day. Now, Comrade Chair, the reason I'm saying that I really am not going to be long is because, in essence, I really want to emphasize some of the things already raised by our presenters yesterday. Comrade Tami says, this is the last paragraph. I don't know if it was in his presentation, but in the document that he gave me, he says, practice and our actions henceforth will tell whether the ANC has the core of revolutionary cadres dedicated to attend to these major objectives and therefore contribute to the achievement of the strategic task to defend both the democratic revolution and its leader, the ANC. that practice and our actions will tell whether we have the core of revolutionary cadres. And earlier in the same document, he says, it is very important to understand that, in summary, the strategic task of the NDR is the creation of a democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa based on the eradication of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid, both of them an expression of the functioning of the settler colonial state. The eradication of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid to produce this democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and so on in South Africa. That you need revolutionaries in order to achieve those objectives. Comrade Chair, we say this, all of us, correctly all the time. We need this democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and so on, South Africa. But if we asked ourselves, the National Democratic Revolution battles for these things, and in the end we get a non-racial South Africa, what would it look like? What would a non-racial South Africa look like? Having eradicated the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. It would mean, for instance, one of the things, comrades, that we raised correctly is this great disparity in income and wealth between one section of the population and the majority. In a sense, black to that thing we discussed about a country of two nations. A non-racial South Africa would eradicate that. That gives you a sense of how revolutionary the concept of a non-racial South Africa is. A non-sexist South Africa. What would a non-sexist South Africa look like? Where the gender equality thing is properly addressed. That means a really revolutionary change. I'm saying, comrades, that is why Comrade Tammy raises this thing, that we need a core of revolutionary cadres to be able to achieve that democratic, non-racial, non-sexist South Africa. So it's in that context that the discussion arises as to what is the assessment of the ANC by the ANC itself? What's our view? The Comrade Percy, the document prepared that Comrade Percy was presenting, originally comes from the ANC Veterans League. When the ANC Veterans League looked at this matter of a national conference resolution which said ANC renewal for the very survival of the ANC, they said, in what would renewal consist? What are the things that would need to be done to say we have therefore renewed the ANC? And as a result of that, they had a look at various positions of the ANC over a period of time. What has the movement said about itself, leading to its own conclusion, we need renewal? This is reflected, I think, in the document presented by Tam. That if you look at the 20 years, in fact, he said more than 20 years, from 1997, he said up to 2022, ANC conferences and NGCs have successively, all of them identified this challenge of the decline in the political quality of the members of the ANC. It's a consistent matter that the movement has always identified for a long period of time to say, here is a problem. Let's do something about it, because if we don't, these are the negative consequences it produces. So the idea of that as part of the renewal, you need a process to audit this membership in order to be able, on the basis of certain criteria, to be able to say, this is stay on as a member, and you go on probation. It arises from decisions that have been taken by the movement itself, about itself, over a number of decades. That identification. So this thing that Tammy is raising, do we have the core of revolutionaries who are going to lead this process of truly turning South Africa into a non-racial and a non-sexist country? It has to address the thing about the quality of this membership. And indeed, Comrade Chair, one of the issues that I was got worried about, listening to some of the comments, I was saying to myself, some of the comments mean we need to do a bit more political education among ourselves. You see, for instance, there was one comrade who raises things about local government and says it must be possible for us to withdraw councillors and not have by-elections. So I said to myself, here comes trouble. Because, comrades, in the discussion of this matter, in the course of preparing for the constitutional discussions in the 90s, what the movement said, one of the things that we've got to address seriously is this clause in the Freedom Charter: the people shall govern. When it says the people shall govern, now we are faced with the possibility, because of the victories of the struggle, of actually giving expression to this notion in the way our government is organized, in the way the state is organized. What shall we do to make sure that we give expression to this notion, the people shall govern? And that is why, comrades, if you look at what the Constitution says about municipal elections, municipal government, and all of that, it was a very, very serious attempt to give expression to that notion. Comrade Zuko correctly quoted what the ANC Constitution says, that we must mobilize in that locality to make sure that civil society participates, interact with the people twice a month, and all of that. It's expressed in the arrangements about how local government should function. That became our presentation during the negotiations, to give expression to this notion, the people shall govern. Now, in that context, you can't say, let the people elect these councillors. And having elected them, me as the ANC, I'm free to remove them. And not allow the people to replace them. It's contrary to the notion, very deeply embedded in the way that local government works, of the people shall govern. I'm saying you follow the thing that Comrade Zuko was saying, what the ANC Constitution says about what the branches should do and the PEC and so on at the local level. It's expressed, the same notions are expressed in the law. in terms of the functioning of local government. It hasn't worked. We have not done the things that are prescribed in the law about how local government should function. But I think that the idea that the point that a suggestion that was made, I don't think would be correct. But again, this is a matter that we needs more political discussion among ourselves. So, comrades, I'm saying, thank you very much indeed for having us here as you discussed these challenging issues. Because when the ANC in the May 29 elections gets 40% of the votes, it translates to me, and fortunately to these comrades, Tammy and the other comrades, in the same way, that this outcome constitutes a threat to the democratic revolution, constitutes a threat to the leader of that democratic revolution, the ANC. That conclusion is correct. And therefore, the question arises immediately. What do you do to defend that revolution and to defend the ANC? And that, in a sense, has been the center of our discussion here, the purpose of our discussion over these last 2 days. Certainly, that was the purpose of the presentations that were made yesterday, to answer these two questions: the defense of the revolution, the defense of the ANC. And in that context, Comrade Tammy says that to implement the strategic task, that's the defense of the democratic revolution and its leader, the ANC, two of the objectives our movement will have to focus on without wavering must be, one, to ensure that wherever the ANC serves in government, at the national, provincial, and municipal levels, it turns the page and actually delivers the goods and services expected in each of these spheres of government. Nobody addressed this issue. Comrade Chair, let's forget about national for now and say in the Gauteng province, the ANC is in government, it leads the government provincially, and I think we're the government in the majority of municipalities. Am I wrong? The ANC. So this is challenging us to say, as part of our response in terms of the defense of the democratic revolution, let us use the fact that state power is in our hands at the provincial and local government levels, not all of them. I'm talking about Gauteng. Let's use that strength that we have, the positions that we have. State power is in our hands. Why don't we use that state power to produce these outcomes? To turn a page. And you'll remember the quotation that Comrade Tammy used yesterday, quoting Helen Ziller, who was saying that she expects the ANC in the next 10 to 15 years to crumble. And she said, instead of the ANC, we, the DA, must present ourselves as the ones who deliver these goods and services to the people. Here is therefore a proposal, comrades, to yourselves, as our leadership in the Gauteng province. What is it that we must do to ensure that we turn the page and actually deliver the goods and services expected of us in the provincial and national and the municipal levels? In that context, the issue that was raised about the recall of councillors was very legitimate. Because we've got to make sure that these ANC comrades who are deployed at these levels actually work to produce this outcome. Because to win back, it's obvious. To win back the confidence and so on some of the comrades made the point that the masses have lost confidence in the ANC because of this and that and the other. To win back that support is to address the things that I know when the provincial leadership did its own research and all of that before the elections, to identify what are the challenges facing us. Whether it's electricity, jobs, crime, and so on. This is saying, let us make sure that we use the capacity we have in those areas where state power is in our hands to address exactly the matters that were identified in our own researches. I'm sure you will not be able to answer this question, Comrade Chair. Are we confident as ANC that we can do that? That our provincial government, Comrade Panyaza, will indeed make sure that in the manner it functions, it produces these positive results. And that our comrades at the municipal levels, whatever we're in government, Gauteng, Johannesburg, and wherever else, Ekurhuleni, and so on, at that municipal level, and the local municipalities, are we confident that we will so motivate our comrades, despite the observations that some comrades made to say that a lot of the comrades here don't have the capacity to do this work? But that's a challenge. In order to win back the support of the people and therefore save the democratic revolution, this intervention to win back the support of the people becomes critical. I was saying that if I say to you, Comrade Chair, can you please stand up and give a commitment that this will be done? You will hesitate to stand up. The second thing, two of the objectives our movement have to focus on without wavering. The second one is this renewal issue. The actual renewal of the ANC, informed by what the movement has identified during the last 30 years, that the quality of membership of the ANC has deteriorated in an alarming degree, in good measure because of the entry into its ranks of careerists who do not believe in the values and policies of the movement. As a renewal issue. There's a report I saw maybe a year ago from the Integrity Commission. There's some comrade who had done something as a consequence of which he had to appear before the Integrity Commission. And the Integrity Commission then asked him to write a short political biography, his own, which he did. I am so-and-so, this is when I joined the ANC Youth League, and this and that and the other. And one of the things that was, I read that account by himself, one of the things that struck me as, well, I'll explain as what. He says, in his own words, I am a revolutionary par excellence. So when I read that, I immediately said, "This is not a member of the ANC." Couldn't be. But I'm a revolutionary par excellence. The Integrity Commission then says, here is his comrade who ended up in the PEC, who ended up as one of the MECs. And in reality, at best, what he should be is a student activist. But he's sitting in these senior positions in the province. I'm raising that question, comrades, to say what is being suggested, that we need to look at ourselves frankly and properly, is correct. I was saying somewhere else, a few months ago, I talked to one of our provincial chairs to talk about the challenge of renewal of the ANC. And I described to him what the movement has been saying about the deterioration of this membership and some of its consequences. The kind of person who comes into the movement is not movement in terms of its values and principles, but is looking for their own things, self-aggrandizement and all that. This chair of the province of the ANC says to me, "President, what you are saying concerning my own province, in terms of the kind of person you say really ought not to be in the movement, that constitutes 60% of our membership in the province." He actually then, he told me about a region. He says, "There's a region so-and-so in the province." I said, "No, I've heard of the name." He said, every single ANC branch in that region is led by a criminal. Every single one. And then he says, and to make matters worse, he says, and President, in terms of our last provincial conference, the comrade who is a leader in that region is now a member of the PEC. The issue, comrades, I'm saying, the issue of our own self-auditing. Who is in the movement? These people, I heard comrades here introducing themselves when they registering to speak. And I whispered something to Comrade Chairperson, Provincial Chair. "I am Comrade Thabo Mbeki." I would stand up and say, "Who told you you are a comrade?" But it's used as a title, like Mr. and Mrs. and Miss and so on. Yeah. It's about this issue, Comrade Chair. Practically, seriously. These people we call comrades, are they comrades? I'll give you the one last example. After the 2021 elections, somebody circulates a voice note. And that voice note is from a comrade who comes from Newcastle in KZN. And he says, "We did not campaign during these last municipal elections in Newcastle. We did not campaign as ANC. He mentions one name of a comrade, he says was very popular in the area, would always get elected. He did not campaign either. And the IFP approached us and persuaded us not to campaign. We didn't campaign. And the reason, he says, if we'd campaigned, we would have won the municipal elections in Newcastle. But we would have put in power criminals, the ones who were leading us. That's why we didn't campaign. So, at the time I asked the comrades who were in the leadership of the ANC in KZN, and I said, have you heard this voice note? Yes, we have. Is the man telling the truth? Yes, he is. So, why have we allowed this to happen? Well, they mumbled something. I don't want to go beyond with that story because that story doesn't end there. Because that person, whom they say we did not campaign because we didn't want to elect wrong people, that person ended up also in the PEC of KZN. Well, the comrades later told me that the story that he was a bad fellow was put out by wrong people. The man was fine, was okay. I'm saying, Comrade Chair, my view is that it is very, very corrective. What the movement has said over decades, the quality of our membership has been declining, let's do something about it. Movement was correct. And the renewal process that we must undertake in this process cannot avoid that. But there's got to be, comrades have said correctly, but that should never be done on a factional basis. Very, very correct observation. Which is why Percy was saying there must be criteria that must be agreed. Another comrade said, we are a people's movement. Even that renewal process, it can't be done out of sight of the masses of our people. Which is why Percy was saying, even that part of that renewal process, we must allow the masses of the people also to make a comment. Because they know about Thabo Mbeki, who lives with them in Mufolo. To say, this member of yours is like this and that and the other. Let the masses of the people also participate in the process of assessing us. And he was saying, and I think I'm quoting correctly when he said, we might be surprised that the people know us better than we know ourselves. So this process, comrades, is very, very important. The last thing. 2016, Comrade Park Stow, he says to me that, please, Comrade President, you must come and join us. Particularly, you must campaign in Soweto. Because if we don't do that, the population of Soweto is going to stay away. So you need to go there and say to them, vote ANC, vote ANC, vote ANC. So I said, Comrade Parks, I think I'm going to decline what you are saying. And the reason is, as a movement, we've been using a slogan which is false. We've got a good story to tell. The masses of the people are suffering. Their conditions are getting worse. And what we say, we've got a good story to tell. I say, I can't, Comrade Parks, go to the people of Soweto and say, I've come here to say vote ANC because we've got a good story to tell. And they can't, they'll say, you of all people. Now tell us, what is this good story? And I won't have it, the good story. I said to Nokomet Parks, the danger of what you're proposing is that I will agree with the people. So I'll end up decampaigning the ANC because I agree with the people. We don't have a good story to tell. Then 2019, Lebogang Maile came and said, President, you must come, participate. And I said, Lebogang, I'm coming, together with Panyaza. I said, I will come. The reason is because in the manifesto of the ANC, 2019, they removed that claim. We've got a good story to tell, it's not there. You can check it. Instead, it said, we have made many mistakes. Many things have gone wrong. We have recognized those things ourselves, and we commit ourselves to the people to say, we will change. So indeed, I joined the 2019 campaign on that basis, because I could go around to the people and say, we've made a commitment. We will change. Whether we did, I don't know. I'm saying that, comrades, because as our chairperson, provincial, spoke to close the meeting as we adjourned yesterday, he said something which I wrote down. Comrade Panyaza, you'll correct me. Pardon me if I don't correct, I quote you correctly. He was saying, comrades, we've had this experience of the last elections. The votes in support of the movement dropped as it did. As Lebogang had said yesterday, we made a commitment that must be 1 or 2 or 3 or however many things that we do differently to communicate a message to the people that we've heard the message from them and therefore we're changing. The comrade provincial chair said the deterioration agenda continues unabated. He was saying, we are not living up to this commitment that we've made, that we're going to change. Instead, this deterioration agenda among us continues unabated. That was yesterday. Today, we must say that, Comrade Provincial Chair, we are going to prove you wrong. Because indeed we will change. In addressing these two big issues, the renewal of the ANC and service delivery wherever we are in government, to address the real interests of the people, that will do both of these things. And therefore, that deterioration agenda will make sure that it is no longer there. I hope, comrades, that's the commitment we're making. Having had this discussion for 2 days, to understand as well, Zoko says that there might be other interpretations about some things, is correct. We've had a serious look. What is it that has happened in our country which has led to the crisis, political crisis that we have? That was the presentation, that was the discussion. What do we do? That's been part of the discussion. So at the end of it, I think we must make this commitment. We will renew ourselves, genuinely renew ourselves, so that even the masses of the people can say, this is a different ANC from the one that we didn't vote for. this one will vote for it. And I'm saying, in part, that must be based on the fact that we do the things that Zuko was quoting from the ANC Constitution, what local government must do. We make a commitment at the end of this meeting that we will do those things. And therefore, what Comrade Panyaza was saying as we adjourned yesterday will no longer prevail. We will be a new ANC doing new things. Not because we want the ANC to look beautiful, but because the ANC, by definition, is a servant of the people. It must serve the people. And exactly because we serve the people will say, next election, we vote ANC. Thanks a lot, comrades, and very well done.
There you have it, conversations on renewal, but not just renewal, but genuine renewal. That's in dissection of the current state of the ANC. That's former President Thabo Mbeki addressing members of the ANC on the second day of the Gauteng ANC Renewal Workshop. Also going at length there to touch on a range of issues. Says, of course, the state of the ANC has deteriorated, and this is due to what he called political careerists. And the party says the party also needs to look at itself frankly and properly.